So $2 trillion was just wiped off the markets as Trump just imposed 100% tariffs on China. But I think there's a deeper, darker story here that relates back to the strategic Bitcoin Reserve executive order that was signed nearly 7 months ago. We've been waiting for America to announce a buy of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. But I think what's going on between China, Argentina, and America over the past 12 hours might suggest that we've been fed a strategic Bitcoin reserve lie. Okay. The reason why I think that is because of what the Treasury Secretary might have let slip in this interview we're about to play for you guys right now.
Viewers, what is going on with Argentina? Because the U.S. Treasury today directly purchased Argentine pesos and finalized this $20 billion currency swap framework with Argentina's central bank. So the intent, I guess, is to provide assistance from the Latin American country's economic turmoil.
Just think about that for a minute. America just gave $20 billion to Argentina. That would represent 200,000 Bitcoin. And again, they've started buying an undisclosed amount of Argentinian pesos on the open market. Think about the reasons why we haven't got a strategic Bitcoin reserve yet. Oh, the reason why it's taken 9 months is we're just waiting to find these budget neutral ways to buy Bitcoin so that the taxpayer doesn't have to foot the bill. But when it comes to buying an Argentinian peso, one of the worst fiat currencies in the world, it's fine. We don't need to find budget neutral ways. Again, a little bit of a caveat here, but pay close attention to what Scott says in response here.
It's clear how Argentina benefits from this deal. What do we get out of it?
We get a lot out of it. Argentina is a beacon in Latin America. President Milei has done the right thing. He is trying to break 100 years of a bad cycle in Argentina. He is also a great ally for the U.S. He'll be coming to the Oval Office next Tuesday, and he is committed to getting China out of Argentina. They're all over the place in Latin America. And when people say to me, how is this not America first? I'll tell you why it's not.
We'll listen to Scott here in a moment, but I do want to add some color to what Scott just said here about China being all over South America, because this is a really good point. Again, there's a different angle here. There's a little bit of 4D chess going on here with China and the rare earth minerals that is very essential for building advanced technologies, like, for example, electric cars. We're going to get to that in a moment because Argentina does hold a lot of those rare earth minerals. But I first want to show you a chart that I think breaks down and explains what Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is talking about here when he's saying China is all over South America. We can see here, I've got two charts up on screen. One is from the year 2000 and one is from the year 2019. Again, this is 6 years ago. So this situation is worse. There's even more red in South America. And what red is representing is which of these South American and Central American countries do more trade with China. That's in red. And you can see in the year 2000, there was very few countries. I believe that might be Paraguay. Again, don't trust my geography. But I believe Paraguay in the year 2000 was the only country doing more trade with China than America. You can see blue dominates on the left-hand side of this chart. But have a look at the right. It's a different story. China has taken over doing trade with these South American countries. And again, we've seen the China playbook. You do more trade with these South American countries, you indebt these South American and Asian and African countries, and then when they can't repay the debt, you make strategic trades. Oh, okay. You can't afford to pay back that loan? We want that wharf. We want those strategic minerals that you're sitting on. Again, Africa is one of the most commodity and mineral rich continents in the entire world. That's why all everywhere. It's not just America, but it's also China is trying to build in Africa and create these strategic partnerships. Again, I just wanted to add some context there to what Scott said, because it's a really important point. It's a pivotal point. But let's listen to the rest of what he had to say on this topic, because it does link back to Bitcoin. Again, there's a 4D chess game going on here between the strategic Bitcoin reserve that still hasn't come in America, China, and then Argentina, the country with some of the highest Bitcoin adoption rates in the world. But before we get to there, let me shut up for a minute and let's play the rest of this.
Shooting at more gunboats like in Venezuela. We do not want a failed state.
So this isn't a bailout?
Sorry, it's not a bailout at all. There's no money being transferred. The ESF has never lost money. It's not going to lose money here. I was in the investment business, mostly currencies, for 40 years. You're supposed to buy low, sell high, and the Argentine peso is undervalued. We're going to have an election in Argentina the 26th of this month. We think President Milei will do quite well.
Let me add some more context. I want to show you the chart of the Argentinian peso and the US dollar. Now, this is a chart I'm incredibly familiar with because I lived in Argentina in 2023 leading up to Milei's election, and I was actually trying to get citizenship in Argentina because of how cheap it was in Argentina. You can see this chart going up and to the right. This is showing us that the US dollar is getting stronger against the Argentine peso. Now, you could see that we went from 200 pesos for $1 in 2022 to 1,400 pesos for $1 in mid-2024. That's a 700% move in under 2 years. That was insane. And again, I was living there in Argentina. It was nearly impossible to spend more than $5,000 a month in Argentina in 2023 and 2024. It was incredibly cheap. And again, they were seeing inflation levels, I believe at the peak of 250%. Now, Besant said that he thinks he's buying the Argentinian peso cheap. It's undervalued. Let's just look at the fundamentals of this chart. I mean, that's going up and to the right. And again, the reason why I put this chart the way I put it on the line chart, is you can see very clearly a week ago what happened. The Argentinian peso broke out to an all-time low against the dollar. Now, we know what happens. Typically, when you break out from one of these patterns, typically what happens is an explosive move, okay? You can see that since this peak on the 1st of May, 2024, the Argentinian peso and the US dollar, it's just been chopping sideways. But now the US dollar has exploded higher, meaning the peso is exploding lower. And do you think it's any sort of coincidence that America has jumped into the open market and started buying pesos now when they have? I don't think so. I don't think it's just, oh, it's undervalued now. I think there's a little bit of a deeper story to tell here, but let's jump straight back into what Scott said.
He is putting the Peronist path behind them. And people in the U.S., especially on the left, they are willing to, Senator Warren tried to put a bill in front of the Senate that the Exchange Stabilization Fund could not bail out Argentina, which I think is rich because she's an American Peronist. Don't cry for me, Massachusetts. And when Joe Biden was in office, what was their idea of foreign aid? It was circumcisions in Malawi and drag shows in Central America. So we are going to use Argentina as an example. We back up our allies, and the Obama administration missed a big opportunity in the 8 years he was in, as many Latin American governments went center-right. So we are seeing Argentina, Paraguay, Ecuador, Bolivia, I think Colombia in the next election. So it is
This is key for us. China is all over Central America, Latin America, Mexico.
Okay, Besant's said some interesting things there. I didn't actually listen to that full clip before I played it for you guys. Drag shows in Central America. Boy, that got me. But Besson said some really interesting things here. All of these South American countries, they're swinging to the right. Again, there's not just a Bitcoin angle here. There's a really interesting angle. I'm living in Peru. There were riots last night as the Peruvian president, again, World Economic Forum installed president, got thrown out overnight. So South America right now is incredibly volatile. And I think, again, there's a lot of people just read the headlines and they go, all right, interesting. America is buying Argentinian pesos, but why? There's a much deeper story here. Again, we all know that there's 50 currencies around the world that are dollarized. 50. Think about that. Besson in that clip mentioned Ecuador. That's a South American country that's dollarized. Who else is dollarized in South America? El Salvador. Costa Rica might as well be. There's a lot of dollars accepted in Costa Rica. And I think maybe America is seeing an opportunity here. Milei has an upcoming election in 2 weeks. Interesting. And what else just happened? The peso just slumped to a 2-year low, literally a week ago. And America steps in and says, oh, no, it's undervalued. Really? I think there's probably some backdoor deals going on here. I do think we're going to talk about where this leaves Bitcoin in a moment, because I've got some interesting charts I want to show you regarding Bitcoin. But I do think there's a little bit more of a 4D chess move being played here. Again, what happened? What did Milei campaign on in his presidential campaign? I'm going to burn the central bank down. What does that imply? No Argentinian pesos, which would mean dollars. I do think Argentina is going to dollarize. I've made a whole video in 2024 leading up to the election of Javier Milei, and I made the claim, I said there will be a 3 to 5 year period where the best investment on the planet will be Argentinian property, believe it or not. And again, I walked through the whole video I walked through the math and the thesis for 25 minutes in that video, so I'm not going to go through it again, but just think about it. Because of how bad the inflation situation has been in Argentina, again, I showed you the chart, the peso has essentially hyperinflated over the past 20 years. Because of this, because of the fact that the peso's gone from 1 peso being worth $60 in 2019 to today, $1 is 1,400 pesos. Because of that, no banks have been lending over the past 15 to 20 years. What happens if the country dollarizes? What happens if Milei does close the central bank? Again, he hasn't yet, but what happens if he does? Property market's going to be it's going to be a buy, because if you look at Argentinian property over the past 20 years, it's pretty much gone sideways. It really hasn't gone up that much. And that's largely because there's no debt. Surprise, surprise. If you force someone to buy property with their savings, they can't afford as much house. Again, that's not the scope for today's video. I'm more interested in the Argentinian American Bitcoin angle to this story, because we can see Trump and Milei here shaking hands. This isn't the first time they've made deals and they've made moves together, mind you. I think Argentina, as it is ripe for Bitcoin adoption. I'm going to get into the positive in a moment, but I just want to round out the negative. Let's not forget Bo Hines left the White House. You can see the title of this article, amid Bitcoin reserve mystery. Remember, I don't know about you guys, but I still haven't gotten an explanation, a public explanation of why Bo Hines left the White House. He was Donald Trump's right-hand man. He was the strategic Bitcoin reserve implementator. That's not a word. But he was the man who was supposed to be responsible in creating the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We know that we got the executive order, we got the paperwork, we got the political posturing, but where's the Bitcoin? Where's the buys? This article is from March. You know what else was interesting about this article? Let me do Control F. Here it is. This is the biggest question mark right here. Within 30 days of this order, each agency shall review its authorities to transfer any government Bitcoin held by it to the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, and it shall submit a report reflecting the result of that review to the Secretary of the Treasury. Government Bitcoin deposited into the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve shall not be sold and shall be maintained as reserve assets of the US. Now, it's now been probably about 250 days. We still don't know how much Bitcoin is sitting in the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. We were told it shall not be sold. That's an executive order coming from the president. Well, guess what Scott Bessent also let slip on the national news about a month ago now? He said some interesting things about the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Let's play that clip.
A number way above 750 billion. What's the story on gold?
Look, we've got the large gold holding. I doubt we're going to revalue it, but we are going to keep it there, again, as a store of value for the American people. We've also started to get into the 21st century, a Bitcoin strategic reserve. We're not going to be buying that, but we are going to use confiscated assets and continue to build that up. We're going to stop selling that.
We're going to stop selling that. We're going to stop selling the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Again, it's been 200 days. We don't have any clarity of how much Bitcoin America officially holds, despite there being despite there being an executive order saying within 30 days, there has to be a full audit, a full report, and you have to tell us how much Bitcoin is held by the US government. Still haven't got it. We got nada. And I mean, Scott Bessent let slip here that, they've been selling it. We need to stop selling it. And we're going to continue confiscating assets to increase the holdings of it. And guess what happened? Guess what else he said?
I believe that Bitcoin reserve at today's prices is somewhere between 15 and 20 billion.
And you know what that implies?
And Mr. Secretary, all of these ideas to monetize the asset side of
in a $15 to $20 billion strategic Bitcoin reserve, that actually implies that America sold a lot of coins. It sold about 10 to 20% of its position. Since an executive order was signed saying that, hey, we need to buy more Bitcoin and you've got 30 days to give us a full audit and a full report. Boy, I don't know about you guys, but the word that keeps going through the back of my mind is rug pull. It is, I think America is rug pulling Bitcoiners. I think it's political pandering. When Trump got elected, I had a lot of friends who said, Luke, look at this. We have a Western country who we can trust. America's standing for freedom. They're outlawing CBDCs. This is bullish, all right? We had Senator Lummis talking about implementing strategic Bitcoin reserve. We're seeing a lot of bills. We're seeing a lot of talk. We're seeing a lot of political posturing. But of course, what are we not seeing? What we're not seeing is Bitcoin added to the strategic Bitcoin reserve. What we're not seeing is a 1 million Bitcoin buy. Where is it? What's even more concerning is it looks as if I think America's fumbling the ball here. Because if we have a look at the Bitcoin held by governments, we can see right now the US is supposed to be holding 198,000 coins. Again, this is based on old data. We don't have the updated list of this audit. China's got 194,000. The UK, this chart might show the UK holding 61,000 coins. Don't forget, they actually seized 60,000 Bitcoin from a Chinese national last week. I know it sounds insane. Let me bring it up. For anyone who might have missed that video we did, UK police have seized about 60,000 Bitcoin from this lady. So this would here we go. The Metropolitan Police say they've recovered 61,000 Bitcoin. It's a lot of Bitcoin. So again, the UK's sat on a pretty big Bitcoin stash, mind you. And again, pivoting back to this geopolitical angle here, there's another reason why I spent 6 or 7 months in Argentina. Argentina's got some of the highest rates of Bitcoin adoption in the world. There's a couple of really cool charts I want to show you looking at Argentina's Bitcoin adoption. We can see, I'm going to try to make this chart as big as possible. This here is looking at the UAE, Singapore, Turkey, Argentina. Look at how many people own Bitcoin in Argentina. Is that 8.6 million people in a country with a 45 million person population? That's a really big adoption. That's why Argentina's number 4 on this list when it comes to adoption. And we all know that here's the kicker. This is, I think, this is the crux of the entire issue. What I'm about to show you. Which country in the world has the most Tether adoption? Argentina. Don't you think that's interesting? Again, start thinking about this for a moment. What were some of the first countries that were open to business for Strike? Jack Mallers' company that sends Bitcoin all over the world. Argentina was one of them. That's interesting, don't you think? I believe Argentina and America were the first 2 countries. We all know the story. We know that there is massive demand for US dollar stable coins in Argentina. This is because Argentina had that massive inflation crisis. I want to try to find a chart because again, you know what they say, a picture paints 1,000 words. And I think this headline and the chart I've got for you paints 1,000 words. Argentinian inflation surges past 200%. This is in 2023. But this chart here, again, a lot of people say, oh, Milei's done a terrible job. I mean, have a look at the data. Milei got elected as this inflation spike was going absolutely parabolic. This is looking at the monthly inflation rate. And you can see in early 2024, it got above 25%. Annualize that. What's 25 times 12? Ooh, somewhere around 290 to 300% annualized inflation. That's what Milei inherited. He inherited that, and you can see inflation drop like a rock since he was elected. You can see interest rates have also subsequently been lowered a lot. It's now far easier to get a loan. Again, going back to that real estate thesis, interest rates in Argentina at their lowest rate for 7 or 8 years by the looks of things. So there's an obvious reason why we are seeing so much, not only Bitcoin, but also stablecoin adoption. Now, again, what's the big picture idea here? What's the big idea? The big idea is that Bitcoin adoption is going to increase stablecoin adoption. I've been talking about this for a while. I actually want to quickly bring you through one of the articles I wrote here in 2022. So these are the articles I wrote on Bitcoin Magazine. 2021, I said stock to flow will break in Bitcoin's final bull run. And now we got the power law, my lord. Again, I've been fighting this fight against models for 5 years now. And then these two articles, how the United States weaponizes the dollar to retain global hegemony. In these articles, again, these were written in 2022. A lot of people are talking about the Bitcoin milkshake thesis now in 2025. I've been writing about this for a long, long time. And I think the thesis is, the point I made at the time was that America will actually be incentivized to welcome not only Bitcoin adoption, but also stablecoin adoption. Let me read a little section from this. And I called it the Bitcoin milkshake thesis. So we can see a strong dollar will lead to hyper-dollarization. A consequence of hyper-dollarization is increased Bitcoin adoption. A consequence of increased Bitcoin adoption is increased stablecoin adoption. A consequence of increased stablecoin adoption is increased US dollar adoption. This dynamic feedback loop will ultimately become an all-consuming fiat currency black hole. Welcome to the Bitcoin milkshake thesis, the delicious macroeconomic dessert you haven't heard of. So again, I lay out the dollar milkshake thesis. I also lay out how this leads to a dollar spike and how this will inevitably lead to massive demand for US dollar stablecoins. Again, in this article, what's interesting is I said at the time, everybody's bashing on Tether. I mean, again, let's remember, what was the narrative of Tether in 2022? The narrative was, oh, Tether's unbacked. Tether's going to get banned by the government. Tether is evil. Tether is this and that. At the time, Tether still was sitting on a lot of Chinese commercial paper. But I made the prediction in this article that America is actually going to be incredibly incentivized to welcome Tether and allow Tether to do its thing. And Tether is going to be the vehicle in which the US plays an economic wild card and prolongs US dollar hegemony. Again, think about this. If all stablecoins are backed by US treasuries, well, all of a sudden, the US government has found a buyer of its debt. I can't find the chart I was looking for. I was looking for a chart. Because I remember referencing an article showing that Tether had slowly stopped buying Chinese commercial paper and it was going to begin to buy more US treasuries. Now Tether is sitting on the 15th most US treasuries in the entire world. They hold more than my Australian government does. Let's see if I got a chart. So that thesis has played out pretty well. Tether was the 7th largest holder of US treasuries in 2024, surpassing nations like Canada and Norway. That's insane. The only countries in 2024 that were larger buyers of US treasuries were the Cayman Islands. You think that's interesting? France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Singapore, and the UK. And then there's Tether. It's kind of interesting. I think that's incredibly interesting. Again, there are no coincidences in the world today. All I find most interesting is what impact is this going to have on Bitcoin? Because I've seen some pretty interesting charts. Some charts or predictions, or maybe I should say prophecies might have saw this coming. Have a look at this. Again, I saw this floating around on Twitter last week. this in this little red box, this is an anonymous post from 2 years ago. They said if this pattern holds, the Bitcoin top will come on the 6th of October 2025. Let me just remind you guys what the price of Bitcoin was on the 6th of October. That pretty much nailed the Pico top. I don't think Bitcoin's topped. I'm more just showing you that for a laugh. I want to be very clear. I don't think Bitcoin's topped. Not a chance. Not a chance in the world. Well, there's always a chance. A 1% chance. That's what I'm gonna put as the chances of Bitcoin having topped. Because when we have a look, I want to find it. There's a really cool chart that I found that was showing that every time there's tariffs, this kind of marks a local bottom. Because we've seen every couple of months, we see new tariff announcements. Oh wow, Bitcoin's broken. We're below $110,000 at the time of recording. Don't you think that is interesting? You know what I'm going to say? Maybe it's a perfect opportunity to buy the dip. Oof, $107,000. I'm just scrolling through the charts right now as we speak. I swear I found a good chart. Apologies. I essentially you're just gonna have to trust me, bro. I found a chart that showed that each tariff scare over the past 12 months has pretty much nailed the bottom. It's nailed the local bottom each time. Man, I can't find it. I looked everywhere for that. Apologies, guys. So again, do I think the Bitcoin bull run is over? No. Do I think we've topped? I mean, there's always a chance. I'm going to peg it at a 1% chance. I think this is an incredible buying opportunity. For me, this kind of feels like the final shakeout. Before October resumes. Again, what happened to the start of October? What, Bitcoin ripped? Elaine in the chat says we're back to $113,000 a coin. Again, I like to make it really clear on this channel, the price of Bitcoin is absolutely irrelevant. In the long run, I don't think you're going to care whether you're buying Bitcoin at 112, 120, or $102,000 a coin. I think you're just going to care that you've got the Bitcoin and you control the Bitcoin. Again, I always encourage you guys just to zoom out, ignore the volatility, ignore the noise. We're going to see many more shakeouts like this happen. It's just Bitcoin. Again, if you do want to ignore the noise, start buying Bitcoin today, getting your hands on some Bitcoin. Again, buying Bitcoin from an exchange is fine, but I really like the idea of mining Bitcoin, especially when you can have a 100% tax write-off if you're in America. Again, highly recommend you look into that new big beautiful bill that was just passed in America that enables American citizens to have a 100% tax write-off if they invest into Bitcoin mining. So again, you can buy the mining rigs, you can use that as a tax write-off, and you can essentially accumulate Bitcoin for free. Not financial advice. Again, a kid with this haircut should not be a financial advisor, but I highly recommend you at least explore that a little bit more. Again, I think the best place to do that is with Blockware. Then the number one, Bitcoin as a mining as a service company in the world. Again, if you're looking into Bitcoin mining, if you're looking into ways to accumulate Bitcoin in tax advantage ways, Highly recommend you check them out. Book a call with the guys at Blockware with a link down below. And what do I always tell you? Once you've got your Bitcoin secured, what do you have to do next? You've got to self-custody it, which is why I always tell you guys, go put your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet. I've got a Ledger and a Trezor with me right now. I've got nearly every hardware wallet in Bitcoin, to be honest. I've used them all. I think they're all great. Again, just go and get your hands on any hardware wallet. You can see the one I have is this one on screen, Trezor Safe 5. Again, you can get 5% off anything you want to buy from Trezor with the promo code Luke5. We have 3 different options for you guys. Highly encourage you guys to check it out. And another great option, another company that's been in Bitcoin for 13 years is Ledger. They're going to give you $10 of free Bitcoin if you use the link down below. So again, go and secure your Bitcoin. Do not trust people like politicians. Because again, I want to believe in America. I want to think America's the good guy. I want to think they're going to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Do I think it's going to happen? Eventually, they'll be forced to. But for me, the biggest concern is the 9 months of dragging our heels that the Americans have done. Again, I'll remind you guys, if you joined this stream late, welcome to everybody who's joined. If you're enjoying it, make sure you subscribed. Gone live twice today. Let's say on average, I go live once a day. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future live streams. But for those who have joined late, let's not forget this executive order to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve in America. Look at the date, March 6, 2025. Come on. It's been 7 months and we've got nada. We've got squat. I can't say that, but we've got nada. We don't have anything. We've seen a whole lot of posturing. We've seen a whole lot of pandering. But what have we actually got? Nothing. We've even got some of the biggest states in America still implementing the Orwell's playbook. What am I talking about? I'm not talking about what Scott Bessett's mentioned was going on in the, what did he say? Central America with the, can't even say that. But what I am talking about is one of the biggest states in America still trying to ban Bitcoin proof of work mining. I wish I were joking, but I'm not. I saw this. This was literally this week. New York Democratic lawmakers want Bitcoin miners to pay more tax. Again, Trump's been in office nearly a year now, and we're still seeing idiotic moves like this. Does Trump really have the country under control? Is America really going to respect your right to hold Bitcoin and mine Bitcoin? I'm skeptical. Color me skeptical. Here it is. Introduces a new anti-Bitcoin mining bill that would tax proof of work mining. I don't know, guys. I'm hopeful. I'm quietly optimistic that this is all just 4D chess. And maybe America's buying. Oh, no. Come on, Brett. No, it's not. BSV is not freedom Bitcoin. BSV is controlled by a very small handful of people because nobody can run a node in BSV. No node, no vote. You trust in someone else. But I would like to think America is playing 4D chess. I would like to think maybe they're quietly accumulating Bitcoin and they won't announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve until they've bought 1 million coins. That's my hope. Again, just don't trust these politicians. Take action yourselves. That's all I encourage you guys to do. Buy Bitcoin, put it into self-custody. Don't trust third parties. Again, another essential tool in your toolkit is putting your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words onto Titanium. I think the best place to do that's with Stampseed. They're going to give you 15% off anything you want to buy with promo code Luke15. Again, another essential tool in your toolkit is having the ability to borrow against your Bitcoin. Again, so many people, I think, are going to make the mistake of selling their Bitcoin. Please don't do that. Learn how to responsibly borrow against your Bitcoin and learn which products, which borrowing products actually give you sovereignty. And you don't have to trust them. You know where the yield is coming from. That's why I like Firefish. They're not necessarily a borrowing company. They're a marketplace. They simply connect you with someone else looking for yield. So again, you know where the yield is coming from. Again, I highly encourage you guys to learn more about Firefish. I use them. I've got a couple of loans, as you can see, on the platform. And again, they use multi-signature vaults. They connect Bitcoin borrowers with stablecoin investors, stablecoin lenders. So you can see very transparently where the yields come from on the platform. There's a borrow section and there's an invest section. No-brainer. I think it's a great product. That's why I've been partnered with these guys for 6 months. They're going to give you a 30% discount on your first loan if you use promo code Luke. Again, I didn't stutter. That's 30% discount. That's substantial savings. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the end game. What do I actually think is happening? What's my base case? My base case is Argentina is going to dollarize quicker than most people think. I think in 5 years, there's no Argentinian central bank. I actually think now again, I've bashed this. I have been critical of America not implementing a strategic Bitcoin reserve, especially when they're saying that they signed a strategic Bitcoin reserve in March. I think that was a strategic blunder. My base case is they would have to be buying Bitcoin privately behind closed doors right now. I'd be shocked if they're not. I hope they are. But I think this investment into Argentina is actually a great move. Again, Argentina's got a lot of rare earth minerals, lithium, cobalt, all of the minerals essential for electric cars, not just electric cars, not the biggest fan of them, but all sorts of the new technology. A lot of these minerals, commodities, they're very, very essential for building smartphones and, of course, building chips, semiconductor chips. What's the big battle right now? Taiwan creates 92% of the world's advanced semiconductor chips. China, again, all the talk about China wanting Taiwan, America defending Taiwan despite it being on the other side of the country. America investing $50 billion into the CHIPS Act a couple of years ago to build semiconductors locally in America. If you're going to build all of this advanced technological semiconductor chips, you need the rare earth minerals. Argentina's abundant in those rare earth minerals. I'm going to show you just so you don't think I'm pulling numbers out of the wazoo here again. But I think this is the bigger play here. I think there's a Bitcoin angle to this, but there's also a rare earth minerals angle to this move. And I actually think it's brilliant. Okay, so here you can see $50 billion is what America invested into the CHIPS Act in 2022. Funding $50 billion. Again, that's a lot. If America is investing $50 billion into the CHIPS Act, maybe it's not small, but a $20 billion whack or a freebie, a donation given to Argentina is potentially a good move. Salud, mi amor. The girlfriend's over there having a sneezing attack. Maybe giving $20 billion to Argentina is not the worst move, considering how much rare earth minerals the country holds. Trying to find you guys a good chart that really highlights this. Oh, it's in Spanish. All right. You're going to have to deal with my Spanish chart. Sorry, guys. Let me dig that up for you. Because I think this is the real reason why we're seeing this investment in Argentina. This is looking at the rare earth minerals around the world. There's a lot of dots here in Brazil and Argentina. I think that's kind of interesting. Google also, I don't get an exact statistic, but it says Argentina has significant rare earth mineral resources. The country is considered a strategic supplier of critical minerals for the global energy transition. Ugh. I hate that. I hate that terminology. Global energy transition. So Argentina's got an estimated 3.3 million tons of potential resources. Okay. Again, I think that's the 4D chess move that's going on here. For me, I just think buying Bitcoin's a far more important strategic move by a country. And I really hope America hasn't been fumbling the ball for 7 months and still hasn't bought any Bitcoin because they can't find budget neutral ways, but they hand Argentina $20 billion and they start buying Argentinian pesos on the open market. I hope that's not the case. I really hope it's not. With all that said, I might end this live stream here. Thank you so much to the 1,400 of you guys tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, subscribe and check out the other 2 videos I'm going to put up on screen somewhere around here. Some of my recent live streams where I dive into, let's say, the 4D chess move between the UK and America in a little bit more detail. With all that said, I'm going to end this one here. Have a good day. I'll see you on the next one.